All right, and I'm being a little silly and just kind of starting the Facebook Live right there. Everyone's showing up. My decibels are coming in. Phoenix Cleater's in front of her microphone.
Yes, stuffing my face because I'm hungry. Yes.
Eric is coming through cool. Chelsea Springler's coming through cool. Everybody looks cool but me. That's all right. It's all right. Me and my Goodwill shirt from 2007 or so.
Oh my god, nigga, you bummy as fuck.
Man, I'll make $2 fucking stretch. So many of my clothes are Goodwill and resale shops from over a decade ago. I will make that $2.99, $3.49 fucking stretch. And you know what? I might do one of those 10-year challenge things for funsies, because I do like when I got that iPod Touch when I was 27, and I was like, is this what people do? They take the selfie, and it was literally like me in the bathroom at this shirt. And right now I'm 37 with the same shirt, so yeah, I should probably like redo that pose and do a side by side. Yeah, super fun. All right, so Facebook is live and Talk Fury is on. Everybody's here.
I'm sending this over to Fury real quick to make sure it's on all our platforms. Everyone can see our faces.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks cool. Looks hip.
Hip. Nobody says hip.
Yes, I did.
He's making it hip. He's making it hip again to say hip.
Right,
Two
yeah, okay.
squared, yo.
What the fuck was the other one?
Which one?
No, but I was like, we were on the podcast. I was like, don't fucking say that. That's ridiculous. And somebody DM'd me on Twitter, but just said whatever the fucking phrase was in all caps.
Hop skippity fresh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hop skippity fresh. No, don't say that.
Yeah, Kamala's gonna run on that. She's gonna say me and Tupac came up with that in the 80s.
Oh my god.
Word. You know, I was helping him out. She tried to incarcerate him, but because she loved his so much.
Ooh. Yeah. All right, let's see. I'll start us off with something, because what I'm tend to do now is do less of stuff that I found and more just like coming straight off of Chelsea's wall. But couldn't help but notice this, and there aren't a lot of outlets with this. Like I think CNN, like, and it's not the most responsible outlet, but they too tend to have stories like this. Like CNN is where I got the first article I saw on the story where settlers caused a global cooling by murdering so many indigenous people. Like, that was on CNN. So I think it wouldn't hurt for them to pick this up, you know, do 3 paragraphs on it. Come on. Cuz Wall Street is about to start trading water. So water shortages that could affect around 5 billion people worldwide by 2050, according to the UN. And a threat of a future where water isn't readily available is particularly acute in California. And my first thought there is like, don't they use a lot of their already irrigated water for fucking walnut trees?
They do, but I'm 99% sure we covered a story about like one of the richest couples in California, and like when everybody else is on like water rations, they like exceed rations, but they give so much to political parties that like local politicians just let them do it. And they just be like using like thousands of gallons of water when everybody else is on rations. But they're also known as philanthropists because they give money to organizations. And it's like, you could just stop using water. And
we should ask Nancy Pelosi how her vineyard is going and how much water they're using there. Doesn't she have a vineyard in California?
Oh, Jesus.
She does in Napa. Her and her own, but we call it Learjet Armani Pelosi. Yes, she has a vineyard in Napa.
Armani Pelosi.
No joke.
Jeez.
Okay,
yeah, she's balling, sir.
Yeah, I actually found it. So this was an article from 2016. I'm relatively sure we covered it. They're known as mega farmers, and their names are Linda and Stuart Resnick, and they use more water than every home in Los Angeles combined.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's heavy-handed. And also, our fellow punk-ass book jockey, Jan Loco, the librarian, corrected us on there. It's almonds.
It is
Those,
almonds, yes.
yeah, those gosh darn almond trees.
Yeah, and actually that's in the article too. The woman who owned the almond groves, yeah. They also own the Teleflora, the nation's largest flower delivery service, Fiji Water, the best-selling brand of premium bottled water, Tom Wonderful, the iconic pomegranate juice brand, and Halos, the popular brand of mandarin oranges, formerly known as Cuties, and the wonderful pistachios with the Let's Get It Crackin' campaign.
Let's get it cracking.
Yes.
God damn.
So they are the world's biggest producers of pistachios and almonds, and they also have vast groves of lemons, grapefruit, and navel oranges. Their produce company is worth an estimated $4.2 billion. And they use more water than every house in Los Angeles combined. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about with environmentalism, with how it's put on people as an environmental, as an individual environmental issue. We all got to recycle. We all got to take a 5-minute shower instead of a 7-minute shower, and all this shit that they put on us. It's like the biggest polluters are the military or people like that are taking up the majority of everything, but they don't want us to talk about that. They don't want us to focus on a systemic issue like that.
Yep.
It's gross. Yeah.
And of course, I'm not going to read this entire article, but it notes that the couple themselves have, this huge like mansion on this fantastic estate, but their workers live in a trailer park.
Mm-hmm.
And they specifically say too, with dirt roads and crumbling infrastructure, so the workers have no water. Yeah.
What's going on in California right now? I heard some of the fires are actually.
Have you guys heard that?
They got some rain. Is it subsiding?
I don't know.
No, I haven't seen myself. Yeah, I only see it on the weekdays. So as soon as Saturday hits, I fell behind. I haven't seen any news on the California fires weakening. Let me take a glance. And also I took another glance and noticed that you mentioned Nancy Pelosi's vineyard, and it makes her the 4th richest California person in Congress.
Oh, great.
She's on her way.
Ballin', sir, ballin'.
All right.
Hey, have you guys heard that most Def song, New World Water?
New World Water, yeah.
Most Def New World Water.
Yeah, you should check it out. There are places where tea is common as TV, because foreign-based companies go and get greedy, fuck around in Pluto shoreline. You gotta listen again why they can't have hip hop in the schools. Yeah, man, it's called New World Water.
Is Most Def still working?
Most Def.
Yeah.
Most Def is the hardest working man in the business, but he ain't got all that flash. He's not selling things except in knowledge, so he don't get no coverage, man. But check that song out. I'm gonna send it to you when we get off this. It's dope. New World, make your house.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. Yeah, like, do you remember what year it's from? What
album was that? Black on Both Sides.
Black on Both Sides. I think that was about like 2000, 2001.
That was a while ago.
Basically, trying to quietly open a malt liquor.
I am trying to quietly open some malt liquor. But to answer your question, Chelsea, you had asked about if it's getting better. I'm only looking at headlines. It actually looks like the fires are going to get worse because they're doing power shutoffs because it's supposed to be windy this week. And they're worried that that's going to spread the fire. So it does not look like things have improved. And of course, if you want to do the Fox News coverage, they just want you to know that it's going to wipe out marijuana growing fields. Because that's what's important right now.
Well, stand near them.
Now that it's legal, they care. Yeah, and I saw in California, so they have a new bill because of the controversy about the firefighters who have been, the inmate firefighters that are paid like $2 an hour to fight the fires and who are losing their lives in the process, who have been previously unable to become firefighters when they get out. They can't work for the state as previously incarcerated individuals. So despite having all those skills and putting their life on the line for very little pay. So they are putting the bill forward in California now to change that, where these inmate firefighters can become state firefighters when they get out as citizens. But, you know, I think that's a little, I guess it's good. It's a little too little too late. You know, the whole state is on fire and this is how they treat it. It's, you know, literally trying to put out a fire with a glass of water, basically. But, you know, good for the inmates. We'll see if it goes through, I guess. But it's the whole state is on fire, and that's the only slight reform they've got going forward so far.
Yeah, it's really early to tell, but I'm going to be very curious to see if that bill actually helps. Like, even if it's legal to now hire former convicts to do firefighting, I wonder how many departments will actually hire them. Like, how much, like, personal prejudice will be a factor to be like, oh, but you still are, like, a felon, I don't want to fuck with you. I'm just very curious to see how that's going to, like, you know, play out. But, I mean, I hope it works out, but I'm very cynical, as it tends to go.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And so I'm looking at the bill out of California.
Prejudice against.
Your video's lagging a bit, Eric.
Uh-oh. Gosh darn internet. While that catches up, I'll note that Jan Loco, the librarian, in the comments section also noted that almonds also wreck bees because they import them to pollinate and they die from change in habitat.
Really? I did not know that.
So just a fucking what was it, transatlantic slave to transatlantic bee trade or whatever the all right, just fuck it, capitalists just move anyone, anything, any species, come work now.
Well, it was like, I think we covered a story, it was about Australia, like the barrier reef dying and shit, and they were like, yeah, but you know, disasters are good for the economy, and that's just like kind of capitalism in a nutshell. Like, yeah, we're killing bees that we need to survive, but profit margins this quarter, am I right? You know.
All right, and I'm looking at the California bill, and under Section 2, and they always with this fucking shit with the way they make these bills, 12034B A1, and it's it looks like they have people that have been released from custody. The defendant is eligible for relief pursuant to this action, except that incarcerated individuals who have been convicted of any of the following crimes are automatically ineligible for relief pursuit in this section. So it looks like these folks, if convicted of this, you cannot be one of these new firefighters. And it's A through H. Murder, kidnapping, rape as defined in paragraph, because you can never just say rape, 2 or 6 of subdivision A of section 261 or paragraph. I mean, if someone raped someone, I already say rapists make great fertilizer. Well, make them the first person in to fight the fire. Fucking, if we're gonna keep rapists alive, put them in fires. D, lewd acts on a child under 14 years of age as defined in section 288, because it has to be defined in a section. E, any felony punishable by death or imprisonment in the state prison for life. Wait a second.
Strikes, niggas.
So if you got life, how the fuck you gonna get out and fight the fires anyway?
But wouldn't that be like the 25 to life people? Like, it might be 25, that might be life. You don't know yet. You might get your parole.
Yeah, you got convicted of selling crack 3 times in the mid-90s.
Right, yeah, which is also like, yeah, so 3 strikes. So that's like, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not great.
When you were between 18 and 21 years old, which means now when you're in your 40s, you can't fight fires.
Yeah, and I'm also, like, curious about the lewd acts on children one. Like, what that entails.
Yeah,
Because that's, like, one of those, like, are we talking about, like, somebody who has child porn? Or are we talking about somebody who was, like, homeless and like took a piss at 2 a.m. in proximity of an elementary school? You know
what?
like...
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's I knew a woman, and she was actually a U of C student. I'm sorry, a U of C graduate, radical feminist, and for some reason she became a. Her title was, but she was over the Cook County jail. So that's where she worked, but she was a doctor at like something, like psychology or something like that, and she was just talking about a lot of because I was sometimes that would have been me coming home from a bar or something, and there's an alley, and yeah, she got pissed, and she was like, people are in Cook County jail for pissing in the alley, so a cop can grab you, and if you are, you don't even have to be around the school, but that's public exposure.
Yeah.
So no, I was freaked out by that.
We actually had two neighbors back when we lived in Illinois. I could say back when we lived in Illinois now, like it was so long ago. But no, we actually had two neighbors who were on the sex offender registry list. One of them raped a 14-year-old girl, and one of them urinated in public. They were both on the sex offenders list.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yes, we need incremental reform. Man, that's just.
Yeah, that's why I'm real. What up?
The wildfires are for, so this bill to give them job rights when they get out is for non-violent offenders. Is that the gist of it?
I think so.
Yeah, which is probably flawed in the first place, but that's what they're saying. Okay.
Yeah, it seems like the only one that really, 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 really should be on here is literally H. It took them, remember, I said A through H. It got them all the way down to H to add this one, and it's one word, arson. Yeah, maybe don't.
Got an expert in the house.
All right, so yeah, legalese and all that, folks. Stuff that was on Chelsea Springler's wall on the Facebook. Wait a second, that may not have been. But so something from Medium, which is where Medium, it's like monetized, but like you can put up a free blog, and like anyone is a serious journalist because it's Medium or but this is up by woo! All right, let's go in with the pronunciation. Indi Samarajiva? Maybe. The title is I Lived Through Collapse. America is Already There. Okay. And Chelsea, you read this already?
Yeah, so it's just a self-published article on Medium. It's what it's good for. Was good for before the paywall, but now it's getting its coin, the Medium CEO and stuff. Yeah, so that article, I believe the gentleman's from Sri Lanka and was mentioning in 2006 what the collapse in the Civil War was like. And this is clearly somebody who still had a job going through it. It's sort of a personal reflection, so it's not a very well-rounded reporting happening, as is the nature of Medium, but still interesting stuff. But this man mentions how throughout the whole process of the collapse, people weren't sure is this a collapse? What's going on? There was just 17 people killed in a bombing right outside my building, but everybody in this building, assuming some of these people are middle class and still employed through the entire collapse process, they still have dinners, they still get together, they still, go out and get their groceries. They still, in between the chaos that's happening, there's still a lot of ordinary, mundane things happening, and it made them question whether a collapse is actually happening. So I would say that this man was saying that, in the United States, if all of these things and the death and the chaos and the further violence that's happening to more people, especially poorer people, that's happening around them, is a sign that it's already collapsed. It's not coming. It's not starting. There's not a point in the process necessarily that's happening. It's done. And if you're questioning just because some people who are a little more privileged are still able to survive in it, that doesn't mean that it's still, just because some people are okay does not mean that it's not a collapse that's happening. And there's a there's a bit of a cognitive dissonance that's happening. Just because anything can continue normal, it's not going to be every single person at the same time is living in chaos, and the whole government has completely collapsed. That it's more mundane than that, but the violence is still as bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think that's like a big issue that we have in America in particular, because everything is so segregated that even when you're suffering and even when things are bad, a lot of people's perception is still like what's on TV or what's in the media. And so it's like, oh, but here's, like for example, like in a city or a suburb, like most of the people are doing okay. That must be how most of America's doing. Because unless you live in, somewhere that's like severe poverty in rural America, you don't know how bad it is. Or unless you live in severe poverty in a housing project, you don't know how severe that is. But a housing project, or that's like one city block. There's hundreds of city blocks, and so I think that like in a certain way that like serious like segregation we have based on class and race and other factors really does impact ultimately how Americans see things or perceive things. Because if more people were honest about like, yeah, I'm struggling, you're struggling, we're struggling, instead of just being like, well, there's still a Dunkin' Donuts on the corner, or there's still a Starbucks or a Panera that I can get to, things must not be that bad. And like a lot of people just really have that attitude, and it's like that's not an accurate depiction. And the middle class being able to survive is not an accurate depiction of what's actually going on for working class people, for people in poverty. Because like every year there's more and more homeless people. Every year there's more and more people going into medical debt that they'll be in until they die. Every year there's more and more people who can't afford college, or they'll never pay off their student debts. But, if you look on TV, it's like, middle class families in the suburbs, they're doing okay. And somehow like that image is like, that's just how America is, even though most of us aren't living that life. And I think really a lot of that does come from that segregation, because you're not seeing how other people live. Because we're so separated. And I think if more people could see how other people live, like overall, the perception would change. Because America, I don't think people realize how big America is. You know what I mean? Like there's 320 million people in America or something, like roughly. That's a lot of people. But, if you have 1 million people in one state suffering here, and 50,000 people in a city suffering there, and, 2 million people over on another coast, like it adds up, but you don't actually see it yourself. And I think that ultimately becomes a factor. Like people don't get it because they don't have to see it because of that type of segregation.
Yeah, I think also depends on where you live. I mean, Chicago, I see it a lot now. I mean, we just had 3 carjackings in Logan Square. Mm-hmm. And again, Logan Square is a privileged, gentrifying area, and white folks are freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
And they ID'd, or at least by video, 3 of them, and 2 male Hispanics, 1 black kid, and definitely under 21. And so I can, just talking to people, I see that they are unedged, so I think I think if you go to your like a newspaper or something, you can just see the graphic levels of violence. But we are isolated, and we're also delusional. We're deeply delusional. I mean, we've got no stimulus. I don't know anyone I'm sure all of us have been unemployed. Right now, the average unemployment benefit in Chicago is $520 every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So without a stimulus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, imagine, families are living on that. You also have families that have been disconnected. I mean, this is some serious stuff. But again, there's so much mass, the bread and circuses, mm-hmm. Like the Roman Empire, less bread, more elaborate circuses. So, and we already have that mentality of, I'm one lotto ticket away from being Bozo, that dude, Amazon. But yeah, it's and I saw something yesterday. I was putting a package in sending it yesterday, and there was a brother in there who seemed really, and again, when I say deeply deranged, I mean these people are sick, mentally sick now because of what's going on, and frustrated. Mm-hmm. This brother was putting dollars and dollars and dollars in one of those scratch off things, where you win money. and he just looked like really deranged, like, you know, trying to win this big pot of money, and then he didn't get it, and he screamed, "Fuck this!"
Yeah.
Now again, this was the food pantry, not the food pantry. What's it called, Chelsea? That place on Armitage we used to go and mail stuff from.
Oh,
Anyway, yeah, I mean, this was a huge brother in there, and did this and screamed "fuck this" threw all the tickets on the floor, and just stormed out. I mean, so I'm seeing the unraveling a lot in Chicago, and it is not just the long lines that we see in front of food giveaways in Chicago, which are, we're seeing these more and more on Grand Avenue in Chicago, the street. But just not just the violence of young folks that are just, you know, freaking out, but no, it's a scary thing. And you know, you folks kind of more out, you know, Chelsea in the South, you folks in Michigan, but I guarantee you, poverty is even worse. Even worse in rural areas and the suburbs.
Absolutely.
You know, again, our media is just not talking about it, and that's the crime, that they are not talking about it.
Yeah, and I think that is part of the I hate to say agenda. It sounds so conspiracy theorist, but I really do think that is a part of a corporate media agenda, is to convince America that everybody's doing okay and everybody's doing fine. Because even though there's so many people suffering, a lot of folks are like, but I'm not seeing it, but it's not my family, so it can't be that bad, right? Because a lot of folks have this idea, like, if it was that bad, I would see it all the time, every day. And, you know, I think that's a twofold thing, is when you probably are seeing it, you just don't know that you're seeing it, right? Yeah. Like, you see someone who's clearly not a child ordering off a child's menu at a restaurant, right? Like, you see some grown-ass person at McDonald's getting a Happy Meal. That could very well be because they can't afford a regular meal, you know what I mean? So, like, you probably are seeing it and aren't thinking about it, but also because it's like, if I'm okay, everybody else is okay. That's sort of like a hyper-individualism that is a part of American capitalism, is like, well, if my family's fine, I'm going to assume everyone in my neighborhood is fine, everyone on my block is fine, everyone in my town is fine, and that's just not how it works. But, you know, the media will not cover this because we want to convince people that everything's fine, so there's no need to riot, no need to panic, right? Let everything keep going as is, but that's absolutely not the truth of things, and it's just really unfortunate that people can't see outside of themselves, that unless it's like them personally being affected, they can't see it, or they don't want to see it, or they don't have empathy for people who are going through it, and that's just like so unfortunate on so many levels to me.
And that's one of the issues with having no public politics, where we get everything from the media into our individual homes through a TV. People are not talking to their neighbors, whether they believe, whether they're conservative, liberal, leftist, whatever. They're not talking to each other on their block about what's going on. They don't know if their neighbor who got foreclosed on the end of the block is because that person is a lazy, person who, just couldn't keep a job like they might assume, or if this is a systemic thing that's happening to everybody on their block right now. Somebody disappears, they don't know it and they don't care.
Yep.
Because we don't have that. We don't have a sense of community in most places. I mean, I would say that hyper individualism and the media culture and everything else that we've done has really destroyed social communications and lines that people used to have in past generations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've also become so immune and attuned to tuning the suffering of our neighbors out. I mean, we step over homeless people all the time, getting to work and going out to eat. So, we hear someone screaming for help. We close the window. I mean, so we've just become a new, I know in the Black community specifically, I was talking to some sister about, how when I lived in a place in South Shore, which they call Terrortown now, how, under the height of gangs, of controlled Black gangs, the violence wasn't nearly like this, wasn't even close to. And I mean, and we had, back in those days, the Black Gangster Disciples and the El Rukins, and they had separate types of clothes they wore, separate boots. I mean, different hats. But it wasn't nearly the violence that we are seeing now. And no one, I mean, the ironic is Trump is talking about violence in the black community more, and I'm not campaigning or promoting Trump. I'm just saying he's talking more about violence in the black community than the Democrats are, than black people are themselves. So, we're here. It's just, this is a Greek tragedy right now. We've just become immune to it until that carjacking is us, until that dead kid is somebody that we know. And frankly, if this is what it's going to take, then fuck it, so be it, because we need to wake the fuck up.
Yeah, I don't know if the United States is capable of the self-reflection it takes to turn something around. And people look at me like I'm such a pessimist and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I've taken a real hard look at what's going on. And out of the love that I have in my heart, I can't lie about it. I can't just give a fake optimistic view of reforming our way out of any of this, nor can I take the pacifistic view that I think is pretty violent in itself and ignores the violence that's happening at this point in the United States. And I'm blatantly like, it's going to be violent. And I don't think, William, since you mentioned going through my page just for some notes today, people are waking up about violence. One of the most recent things I posted was just people who are admitting, the government says violence is not the answer to anything. Well, they haven't saved anyone from the pandemic. They won't give any of their huge violent military budget to help people in desperate times. That's violence. And it's going to be, so it's the only way out of it is going to be violence. That's not condoning violence, but it's being real about what's going on with people and what we have to do to get justice and get to survive.
Well, that's why the young sisters and brothers are behaving so violently, because they intrinsically know that is the only thing that America respects. That is the only, that's all they got.
You need to speak.
And we can't blame them. We just better be damn careful. But who are we to blame these kids?
Yeah, I think that goes to the idea that you need to speak to people in a language that they understand. America has the largest military. We overthrow governments all the time. America is responsible for the transatlantic slave trade, for a genocide, and forced relocation of indigenous peoples. America has made it very clear for a very long time that the only language they understand is violence. And people are now trying to speak back to the American government in the only language that it understands.
You know what? And this is why it's kind of sad that Tariq Nasheed had to be the outlet that I went to get this actual journalism. But so it was in the news that some pigs in Compton got fried, and but they survived, unfortunately. And so while they're in the hospital, they're like, there's people protesting in the hospital. And Tariq Nasheed, his boot-licking ass, actually got in contact with them niggas. And they're like some new African organization group out there in Los Angeles County. And dude said straight up, yeah, we just wanted to go there to send the message that we're glad about what happened and we hope they don't make it. And he also pointed out that it was like, no, we actually weren't blocking any entryways. We were behind the line. We were following all the rules. The people who were actually blocking the entryways were the other cops and officials trying to get us out.
As it tends to go.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and we should say that, again, I do this on purpose, and I guess maybe I should screenshot it and post it so people can see it and be like, oh, fuck, I can do that too. Is, I'll just find a cop and see where they put a post about, another cop died somehow, which is mostly car crashes. Let's keep it greasy. And I just put, oh, all accidents matter. Quit crying victim. Pull yourself up by your blue straps. Go and treat them the same way they treat you. Like you said, give them that language of violence, that language of apathy, that language of victim blaming. And then there's other folks that are going to do action. I'm probably not going to do action myself.
Nigga, we too old for that shit.
Yeah, I will probably get fucked up out there in the streets. I'm not a good frontline soldier to have next to you. I will get my ass kicked and be asking you for help.
Well, I mean, that is the joy of any type of movement, right? Is everybody has a job, right? Because we do need people on the front lines. We also need a lot of other things too. I think that's something that people sort of a side tangent, sorry, but just sort of a thing that people like get caught up on is they're like, but I don't want to be in the streets getting punched and pepper sprayed by cops. And like, that's okay. You can still contribute to a movement. Not everybody has to be on the front lines for a movement to work, you know? Like, we still need, people who, keep track of folks and be like, okay, who's getting arrested? Who's the lawyer? What's the bail fund number, right? We still need that. We still need people to say who came home, who didn't get home. We still need people to be, medics doing first aid immediately on the streets. We still need people to drop off snacks and water bottles. We still need people who do like babysitting. Like, everybody can have a job. We still need people to signal boost and like make hashtags trend. You don't have to be on the front lines getting punched in the face. Everybody can do their part to make a movement grow. So, you know what I mean? Like, don't discount yourself because you can't be on the front line getting pepper sprayed by cops. Like, you can still contribute. So just, don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, and I think the distinction of that is being organized and doing something. Like, people have created this dichotomy between, slacktivists online who don't actually do anything. They should post on, Twitter, Facebook, or whatever, but they don't do anything. They're not part of the organization. And that is valid. I mean, I will never make fun of people for saying something, but if you want to talk about doing something or not, it's some kind of organization. On the other side, I don't think that people showing up and going to protests and taking a selfie to post on their Facebook with Black Lives Matter on a banner is necessarily, that's not organizing or being organized either. Mm-hmm. And I'm just giving that for an example, but that goes for a ton of movements. That goes for a ton of, kind of very liberal, you could look at something like Slut Walk, which was a really notorious one that every year it started to become a parade where people would just take their selfies and that would be a thing. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not actually organizing either. So that doesn't, whatever it is, if it takes coordination and it takes strategy, that's doing something if you're part in whatever form it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I think that's an important thing because right now, we're looking at a part where the Democratic Party and the elite, liberal elite, white establishment, they've done a lot to not just co-opt movements, but fund their own movements in an attempt to make sure that an organization like the Black Panthers can never exist again. Now, there are organizations like Black Panther. I think SWAP is one of them on another level. FURIE is, and that's some amazing, that's amazing stuff right now because in what you're doing now is you are organizing the most marginalized to be powerful, not organizing the most marginalized to give money to the DNC. And that's what that's what the labor unions have begun. FURIE, of course, running programs, martial arts programs in underserved communities. How do we not just fight back for ourselves, but how do we go and kick that motherfucker's ass at the end of the block who are harming our daughters and our sons as women? How do we do that? Or, so I think we've got to figure out way. And then of course, William, with the Black Radio Havana, Cuba, which was what Fidel had in Cuba, implemented it here, making all these connections. Those are revolutionary acts. We've got to, and I mean, I know it's probably another conversation for another time, but we've got to figure out how do we do activism, not boutique activism, but activism to overthrow this evil, vile system, which is chewing us up and grounding us in for profit. And just another quick tangent. I don't know if anyone saw, and this is how deep it's getting, how there is a Google app for those who need a job. So William, are you looking for a shift? Do you want to go evict your neighbor? There's a Google app for you to do just like that. So we can evict our neighbors. We can throw their shit out and probably grab some good stuff. I mean, this shit is criminal, and this is why we need a radical, and part of this is what we need is intellectual knowledge. So we have these ideas, so we're not just walking into these traps of Black Lives Matter and all this stuff, so we can do some really serious organizing and political education, which Chelsea talked about is necessary. I'm done.
Yeah, that app, I saw that. I don't remember the name of that right now. Eric, maybe you've got it, but and that's the thing with everything that's happening around us. When people look at Trump and say, oh, he's fascism, and if we get him out, it's fascism. I'm like, the fact that an app can exist to evict your fucking neighbors is fascism. And that is a homegrown American thing that we've allowed to happen with startups and shit for years. And how is that different than finding people to sign up for the SS to go, put people in concentration camps? We have an app to get poor people out, and we can employ other poor people to do that who are desperate. Fuck that.
Absolutely.
And I'm searching, but I'm not finding the name of the application. But Jesus, I was listening to some news and commentary on that on the last night, because I work night shifts now, so I make sure I practice staying up late. And yeah, I sat up there listening to that, and it's like an extension of like the Yelp review, where it's like you can just go and just be evil. And the host of the program, I forget which program I was listening to. It may have been Jacobin, probably fucking Jacobin. I play them a lot, and they were saying they remember a Yelp review that they got, that the Yelp review was like low stars, but they still gave them compliments. But also they had just had a root canal that day. And so they were like, "Oh, sorry, I'm not speaking well. I just had surgery, like shortly before this shift. My bad, not that, like the day before."
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, it wasn't you at all.
Oh.
I found the app. Nigga, why the fuck is it called Civil? Civil, bitch! Civil?
Word.
What?
A liberal did that. That's not some Trump supporter. Some liberal made that app and made that name. You know that.
It's Civil, Civl. I'm assuming that's supposed to be civil. I don't know how the fuck else I'm supposed to say that shit. Civil, nigga? Okay.
He's riding with Biden.
What? Okay. So this is coming off CBS News. This is from September 22nd, not that long ago. For millions of Americans, the coronavirus's devastating economic impact has meant struggling to keep a roof over their head. But for one new gig economy app, the historic crash means something else, a business opportunity. The company behind the app, which is called Civil, offers workers a chance to quote-unquote join the eviction crew, noting that many are falling behind on their rent or mortgage. Users can also work as a process server.
Stop. Join the eviction crew?
Literally.
They're making it sound cool.
Users can...
that's some person making 6 figures in Silicon Valley who made that stuff in San Francisco.
Diversity of thought. Users can also work as a process server, a job that involves serving people with a variety of legal papers. Work on your own schedule, Civil says on its website, where users can apply for gigs in quote-unquote property preservation and debris removal.
Wait, okay, so again, like with the bullshit language, property preservation, the property, which is a building, is already there. Yeah. And it was probably made with some pretty good materials. It's probably withstood, depending on what region it's in, maybe a hurricane. Shit, maybe a nearby tornado. An earthquake, a fracking earthquake. We know what that underground water does that's not reusable after that. That, like, the structure is already there. It's already sustained. It's already preserved. Go do some preventative maintenance. Get a plumber in there and make sure stuff is good. Get an electrician to make sure stuff is good. That's done. But they're using that language, and it's bullshit.
Work on your own schedule, Civil says on its website, where users can apply for gigs in property preservation and debris removal. In dozens of Craigslist ads posted in August and September, Civil advertises earnings of up to $125 an hour or $2,800 a week. Unemployment is at a record high, and many cannot or simply are not paying rent and mortgages, reads a typical ad.
Also, like, $125 an hour, which probably sounds, whoa, holy shit, let me get in on that. But then also, like, it's kind of like when you do, like, repo. Like, nigga, you might get shot.
But also, 125, how many hours a week do you get, though?
Yeah.
And then are you an independent contractor, so you have to pay your own taxes out of that 125?
Of course you do. Yeah.
Like, come on now. And then they actually have a hyperlink to a Las Vegas Craigslist ad. We're being contracted by frustrated property owners and banks to secure foreclosed residential properties. There is plenty of work due to the dismal economy. That's like an oxymoron if I've ever heard one. We are seeking cleanout crews, eviction crews, independent contractors, and process servers. True flexible schedule. Choose your own days to work, no caps or scheduled hours. Get paid instantly after every job. Easy job selection via mobile app. Plenty of work. The average civil agent does 6 assignments per day. Quick sign up. Complete orientation quickly online and start earning money in less than a week. Requirements: 18 plus years or older. iPhone or Android smartphone. Minimal background check administered by Civil. Must have reliable transportation.
Yeah, your own car.
Yeah.
Man, it's called, I can't get past it. It's called Civil.
And what does that do to people when they do that? I mean, you do that for a couple of weeks. You a big man on the block, and it's probably mostly white people doing this shit. Have to have that car and a smartphone and shit. But you a big white man on the block now, man. You making a little coin. You out there grinding, kicking niggas out their property. Kicking out niggas out their home. I mean, what sort of monster, the foundations of, I believe in a lot of ways, the foundations of being a monster is laid within all of us when the moment we are born in America, we acknowledge it, accept it, and then reject it, using Fanon's words. But when you have those jobs, what does that do to the psyche? Who do you become?
Yeah.
You're a severe, what do you call a serial killer? You are a serial eviction processor. Crazy shit, yo.
Mm-hmm.
In capitalism, people define themselves through their jobs. It's a major building block of their identity. If you don't have a job, you're not functional, you're not a worker, you shouldn't exist under capitalism. And it teaches people that pretty fast, right? So I think, when you give people jobs like this and they're able to identify themselves and prop themselves up through their identity through their job, of course, what does that build in people? Someone that's their job. Like, I remember when I worked for this, this furniture company that shall not be named right now. They were rent to own, and they would they had a process like that where they would, if you can't finish paying your bills, they'll come and repo your couch. Like, there's people who would laugh about that. People getting paid minimum wage to do that, who are one bill away from having that happen to their car,
Mm-hmm.
who will come back and laugh about the fact that, the attitude that the customer had when they went and ripped that couch back from someone in Section 8. Like, because they're an inch away from being that, that destitute themselves, they prop themselves up to feel better because they're doing that, and they become vile people sometimes. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks who are in those sort of industries feel superior because they really believe in the bootstraps mentality of yeah, I'm struggling now, but because I'm doing my job in 6 months, I'm going to make it. In 10 years, I'm going to be a billionaire, type shit. But actually, reading this app and the description of it reminds me of, what was that fucking Michael Moore documentary about Detroit or Michigan?
Was it
Mikey
and
Me? Mikey and Me? But I remember that because they were going through, there was literally a woman who had rabbits, and she was breeding them to sell them to people. And her sign literally said, it was $10 a rabbit. And it was either for a pet or food. And if you want it for food, I'll kill it for you. And that's how desperate it was. But the only person who was employed on the block was the fucking guy who worked for the sheriff's office, who was kicking people out of their houses. And I hope everybody who works for fucking Civil gets their ass beat from back to front, side to side.
And for the folks that are good people doing that job, I hope it's a loving beating by someone who instructs them as they get in their ass beat. Because you just, anyway. But that's a civil beating. Chelsea told a story once about one of her colleagues who worked at this place. She was hiding her van in between two of the company's trucks. So the repo man couldn't come to her own job and collect and take her Jeep. And this woman.
This person's job was collections in the company. So this person would get on the phone every day to do collections and had to hide her car from her own collection because she was renting her car and couldn't pay it.
What?
Yeah, and I think something about like a gig like that. It also if you've been like me, I work with things, not people. Mm-hmm. Which is why I was very uncomfortable being a manager at the last company I worked for, because it's wait a second, so this person, because of this and this on their record, I'm supposed to fire this person in mid-November? This person that has kids in mid-November? Are you shitting me? I don't like that. Like, because it turns just people into your job. Like, back in the early days of the wine cellar, when, you know, I'm trying to bring people along to where I already am. So it's like, I'm already like, fuck all cops, abolish police. That's where I'm at in the first year of doing the wine cellar. But I'm making the argument of like before I worked at McDonald's and I'm like 19, it's like, oh shit, a burger's the shit. A burger is a special thing. But now thousands of burgers run across.
Yeah.
Fucking let them fall on the floor. I'll sweep it up later. I don't give a shit. Right? The ones that fall into the recycling bin that doesn't touch the floor. Hey, that's my fucking lunch when I go on break. You know, like now I don't care. And it's like, now think about that with cops. Right? Like, if someone was a regular little teenager and then they get into their 20s and they become a cop and maybe they had a job at a, you know, I'll say furniture store again or something. Now they work with people. And now they come across thousands of people and, hey, we dropped some, you know, a few die here and there.
Yeah.
Whatever. I just had to do my job today and pay my bills.
Yeah.
Like working with people should never just be a job. That should definitely be a special earned service. It's a position of trust.
Did you read that? I think it was a Medium article where somebody said they were a cop, and it was like confessions of a former bastard cop. Did you read that?
Probably not. It sounds familiar though.
Yeah, a lot of people read that, and that was something that he mentioned in there, is that when they were pushed to get like as many tickets and arrests as possible, something that he did specifically was to target homeless people and to write them a ticket for whatever, like fucking like loitering or, you know, whatever, taking up too much space, whatever the fuck ever, like just innocuous bullshit. But because he knew, because they were homeless and they had to go to court to pay the fine, they either didn't have the money or wouldn't show up for summons. And so it would create like a never-ending cycle of them never getting out of tickets and never getting out of arrests. And so like basically he would be credited with their downfall essentially by writing them tickets. And so like he targeted that particular demographic because it was like, you know, easy that, you know, to do that. And so that was really, oh Jesus, sorry, my phone is like going wild right now. I'm getting all these text messages. But yeah, that was really his thing, is that it was like easy for him, even though he was supposed to be helping people and he knew that, he was under pressure to write tickets. And so it's like, who's the most vulnerable person I can find who's going to be a gold mine for ticket writing for me? So I write you a ticket, you have to go to court, I show up, oh, you didn't go to court, another ticket. Oh, you didn't pay your fine, another ticket. And like that was his like never ending, you know.
Endless cycle?
Endless cycle, yeah. And he was really proud about it when he was a cop.
Yeah, because it's work smarter, not harder. What up?
Remember who broke that story was a black cop in New York, who they then came after him and tried to fire him. He's still on the force, still under lawsuit, but that was a black cop in New York who broke that story of because they were lying. They were telling, not only did he break the story, he recorded it. He went into roll call and he recorded the sergeant said, yeah, I know the rule is we don't do quotas. Yeah, that's what they say in the papers. But right here in this precinct, we are doing quotas right now. And this brother, he recorded this motherfucker. And they arrested him. They arrested that cop for doing that. And, you know, he sued, he won, he's still on the force. So, yeah, I mean, it's deep.
I should have met y'all motherfuckers years ago. The three of you motherfuckers I should have met.
You did meet me years ago.
Even more years. Because I covered that fucking story. This is like some deja vu shit. It's like actually kind of weird. Yeah, because like, again, we're going back 2013. Folks, the wine cellar has always been this. Mm-hmm. And we have Aaron Robertson, a name I don't typically see in the archive chat space. And they left some commentary while the program was going on a little earlier. And what they also left was a link. And what it looks like is the search results if you type in water shortage on vice.com. Mm-hmm. And just a couple of headlines that came from the homie in the chat space. This map shows you where violence could break out because there's not enough water. That's in news. And then in tech, Britain will have water shortages in 25 years thanks to climate change, environment chief says. And then under news, Iraq's water protests have left at least 13 people dead. Another one under tech, Cape Town residents tell us what it's like living in the shadow of day zero, facing a water shortage. And under food, why it really sucks to be a chef in Venezuela right now.
I'm sorry, was one of those places South Africa? I missed that.
Is
Yeah.
Cape Town.
Okay, yeah. We covered a story about that, about a woman who was living under a water shortage in South Africa. Maybe like 2 years ago?
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, it was a small town, and there was like there just wasn't any water, and it's like, hope it's gonna rain, got some jars. I was like, oh, no.
Again, how can I remember after so many episodes? I'm like, fuck, we did banking for sex workers? Yeah, we goddamn did. Yeah, there's a lot of fucking episodes.
In India, yes, we did that.
Yeah, so,
And that's the thing, you know, with reports like that, so like, wow, surprise. So lack of water and stuff that people need to survive correlates to an increase in violence. Wow, who would have thought? Like, you know, the Pentagon studies this stuff. So back in 2014, can't see it on my screen here, but you could search it. It was in the Guardian. It's from 2014. You can find the article by searching it. It's called "Pentagon Preparing for Mass Civil Breakdown." You know, and this is when, you know, the Obama presidency is still going on. Everything was okay, right? So,
Right. Hope.
this was, you know, so this is the Pentagon. They have trillions of dollars that they spend on studying stuff like this about, oh, what's going to happen when more states get on fire and people have even less money and we foreclose more people. What's going to happen? And they're prepared, and they militarize people to prepare for that. So like, it's an article that breaks down how the Pentagon is predicting how much mass civil breakdown there's going to be in the United States, and they're on it. Like, so they know more about us and what's happening than any of us idiots like are aware of in our little bubbles of what's going on in the United States, and they know years ahead, and they're prepared years ahead. And yet the public discourse that we are happening is violence is always wrong no matter what it is. They know violence is happening. Like, oh, violence is going to happen here exactly statistically according to this, but we're busy blaming each other about when that violence happens, when these people know. Like, I'm so past that conversation of whether violence is okay. They already know it's happening. So why can't we deal and coordinate ourselves accordingly?
Yeah. And also, it's like, of course, folks, violence isn't okay. It hurts. It makes you bleed and say ouch. But also, it is happening. And if when you're making me bleed and I say ouch, if my arms still work, I need to make you bleed until you stop.
Yes.
It's like, and that's just gonna happen, and it's been happening since the Santa Maria, Nina, Pinta, the fucking boats.
The boats, yeah. No, that was something I was about to say, though, is that too often we conflate violence with self-defense.
Yeah.
Which is like, I do not have to die silently because you want me to die. I do have a right to defend myself. I do have a right to live. And me defending myself is not inherently an act of violence. And I'm like really frustrated that self-defense is often tagged as violence. Because like there's a difference between like, oh, it's the weekend, we have nothing to do, let's go lynch a black guy, you know, versus I'm the black guy and I don't want to die, so I'm going to fight back. These are not equal acts of violence. Or, you know, people are coming and stealing resources from my neighborhood. They're stealing our food, they're stealing our water. Me stopping people from taking those things from me that I need to survive is not inherently violence. That is an act of self-defense. And I just really wish that we would be more cautious about some of the language choices sometimes.
I think
But you know-
one discourse that the left needs to deal with right now, if it is going to do anything useful, if it's going to grow into anything substantial in the United States, this has to be talked about violence. Getting over the whole violence versus nonviolence and pacifism conversation has to happen, and it needs to happen now. And understanding the nuances, self-defense versus violence. If we can't distinguish that, we're not going to be helpful to any oppressed people in the coming years, which is things are going to get snapping faster and faster and harder. And if we can't do that, if we keep thinking that the state has a right to violence and that is not violence when they use force, and inherently anytime individuals do use it is negative violence, we're not going to be able to protect ourselves. We're not going to be able to move forward.
Well, and that's what I'm saying about this next level. And again, you know, this is the, and this is my critique of the Black Lives Matter, you know, whole fuck the police movement. I get it. But the reality is, when you are running an endless loop of, you know, fuck the police, you're not elevating the conversation to how we protect our communities. How do we begin the resistance that we're talking about now? Because, you know, and so it's just, it doesn't go anywhere. The violence against Black people is going to continue. You see, no matter about the protest and all this shit, it is not stopping. You know what it is just people are getting paid off all these protests, and they're becoming these social media heroes. And like, what's his name, Sean King or whatever that dude's name, the white dude, the white half white black dude. Anyway,
he's not half black, but yes.
Right, yeah. But I'm saying is, we've got to figure out how do we elevate, because what that's doing is it's sucking into the next generation of activists, and they're just doing these endless protests. That's just, you know, that's really feeding into the Democratic Party. So my point is, how do we elevate the debate to where we are having these conversations about where we need to go is protecting ourselves from these people, these corporate citizens that are looting and destroying our communities, that are doing these apps. These are the people that are funding Black Lives Matter. These are the people, this is the enemy. The cops are nothing but pit bulls that are being sick at us. But some of them aren't, you know, but a lot of them are. But to just focus on them as opposed to how do we build a revolution, that is my question. I don't want to sound like I'm pro-cop, but what I want to do is, how do we elevate the debate so we can begin real action? Because it's going to get bad for all of us, and we should all be very afraid when we can't even drink fucking water. It's coming, it's here. This is the collapse.
Jeez, was that the closer? I think it may have been heavy-handed. Could we mention the red rag again before we go?
Yes. Is my video? I think my internet might be lagging a little bit. So I don't know if maybe Eric, you know about this too, and you're actually on the ground in Chicago where it's at. So yeah, the Red Rag Pantry in Chicago is going. It is we were just announcing it on the FURIE page today. It's a open access food and supplies location in Chicago. I'll pull up the address here for anyone curious. So if anyone wants to make donations, you can drop off canned foods and things like that right at the address. You don't gotta, you know, it's outside permanently. Or if you need anything, you can come by and pick it up. We do need donations to keep it stocked consistently. And our PayPal for that would be furie.chicago@gmail.com. That's our email that can be used for FURIE. Or it's on our website, panwomanist.org. And yeah, we're getting it running. Eric, do you want to say anything about the Red Rag?
Yeah, well, if you know, if the folks who see it on the FURIE page or on the Wine Cellar, if you could share that post. You know, we have a huge crisis in Chicago right now, and we run out of food like every 2 days. So we definitely need your help. And it's not just about feeding people, but it's about building a movement so we can take ownership of our communities. Yeah, so we need your help. We need volunteers as well. We need lots of food. You know, it's not about money per se, it is about food. So if you don't have food to donate, kick us in a couple bucks, and $5-10 goes a long way. We go to Aldi and get food for that. You know, we can get 10 cans of food. We can also pay for gas to get the food, but we really want to expand this, because this is what the Black Panthers did. They fed people, and while they were feeding people, they educated people. And that's what we want to do.
Yeah, and it's at 3521 West Cortland Avenue. Our street, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's 3521 West Cortlandt Street in Chicago.
And the number is 773-862-3049. Again, it's 773-862-3049. Call for any questions, or also if you can leave food or want to give a donation. And that the address of the site is in front of a house of a social worker who allowed to use. She was one who kicked it off. So it is in front of a house, but you'll just see a shelf with tarp on it. Put your food there. And again, it is, lots of people are always coming and going, just because there are whole families that we see showing up and, going through the bins, getting stuff. It's just important. And again, it's not just about, we're not a charity. What we are is a revolutionary act of feeding people, to educate people, to start taking our community back from those who loot, holding police accountable. So this is who we are.
Well, I'd say distributing food for the same price that the earth charges us for it is a revolutionary act.
Yeah.
I love it.
Food should be free. Food should be free. It should be free all the fucking time for people. There should be no shame to it. These people have given to our communities, and now they need food. It should be no fucking shame to it.
Did Johnny Appleseed put apple seeds in the ground or dollars? All right. Hey.
Preach. Reverend.
All right, folks. Thank you, everybody, coming in, being articulate, looking cool. I know I kind of fuck up the aesthetic with my broken glasses with duct tape on them. I'm kind of fucking up the game while you're all looking crispy on here. But I'm the audio engineer. I saw the homie Loco, Jesse Loco, said Phoenix Collider's audio was kind of hard to hear.
Oh,
I am going to check. I'm going to look into the hardware on that. I'm going to crack open the board and see if something was wrong with her channel, because that microphone was just working gosh darn perfect before. So I will check that, and I will fix her audio in post when I go into edit mode. Folks, thank you. Chelsea, Eric, holding it down. And be safe out there. Let's wrap it up. All right?
Thank you.
Goodbye.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.
Next week.
Leave room there.